Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller, and a very special welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. So we're talking about the video that has been making headlines all week. It shows the beating of a girl by her mother. It's reignited discussions about how we treat our children, as well as renewed concerns about child abuse. Joining us this evening, we have social worker Rose Robinson Hall, mentor at the National Parent Support Commission. Trevor Edmondson is also with us, along with the regional director for the Southeast region of the Child Development Agency, Robert Williams. First, though, Vashon Brown has this overview.
This is the video that has been making national headlines, the vicious beating of a girl by her mother. The video, which some people call disturbing, has been circulating on social media since last weekend. It shows the child's mother with a machete in one hand, beating her daughter while holding the child's clothes with the other. In the video, the woman is seen swinging the object repeatedly to slap the youngster while saying, all throughout the video, the child was crying for her mother to stop, but the woman continued to beat the child with a machete. The video is about 35 seconds long. At one point, the child fell to the ground, which appeared to be wet. That did nothing to deter the woman, who continued to beat the child mercilessly with the object. The child was finally able to flee. TVJ News spoke with the children's advocate, Diane Gordon Harrison.
To me, it pointed to the need for very urgent intervention and action, because she in her mind may have been disciplining that child. What we saw was certainly a very, very graphic depiction of child abuse.
The head of the St. Thomas Police, Senior Superintendent Bew Rigaby, says investigations have revealed that the incident happened sometime last year. Many of the people who came across the video on social media sites like Twitter and Facebook have expressed outrage at the actions of the woman. Some have questioned what could have driven the woman to go so far. Children's rights advocate Betty Ann Blaine says it's unacceptable.
A mother who does that to her child must face the courts. She must explain to a judge why is it she resorted to that, and there must be some penalty for her behavior. Having said that, one of the ways I would penalize this mother is that she would have to do mandatory parenting classes.
By Tuesday, the St. Thomas woman seen in the video, 44-year-old Doreen Dyer, was charged with cruelty to a child. The charge falls under the Child Care and Protection Act. It was leveled against Dyer when she faced the St. Thomas Parish Court Tuesday morning, days after the police went to arrest her after the video started to spread like wildfire. As it relates to the 12-year-old girl in the video, she has been released into the custody of an aunt after receiving emergency counseling from the state. Investigators have already started to collect statements from the victim and residents of her community.
Anybody who has responsibility for a child, which of course would include a parent, who willfully does some act to assault the child, to expose the child to undue harm, etc., that person can be charged under the legislation. And there are two courts really that could actually hear the matter. It could be heard at the parish court level, at which level the maximum penalty would be 3 years imprisonment or a fine, or it can be heard at the Supreme Court level, in which case the maximum term would be 5 years or a fine.
Vashon Brown for All Angles.
Thanks as always, Vashon. Now, when people watch that video, some of the comments, there were all kinds of reactions. Mrs. Robinson Hall, you're an expert in the field. What was yours?
It wasn't surprising. As a country, our style of parenting generally tends to be authoritarian. We probably want to consider some of our history that we have retained in terms of the way we punish and hold people accountable. An interesting thing, Dion, is that throughout the history, since we coined the term child abuse, that it has taken incidents like these to bring attention to the system. For example, in the 1700s in New York, a young girl named Mary Ellen came to the attention of a church social worker because it was reported that she was being abused, physically abused by her stepmother. But there was no law. There was nothing called child abuse. There was no law. And Etta Wheeler is the name of the social worker, and a colleague of hers said, why don't you go to the Association for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, because Mary Ellen is like a little animal. And so she did. And she was able to get justice eventually for this child under the auspices of the Association for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So that's how the Association for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children came about. The lawyer persisted, and it was the matter was heard in the court, and the judge, to his credit, put Mary Ellen on the stand and listened to her account. And then there was another case in the 20th century in England by a little girl from the Ivory Coast called Victoria Climbié. And Victoria died. And after she died from abuse, it was found out that she was seen by several agencies, several social workers, and they never took into account the scars. When they found her body, she was in a bathtub. She was wasted. Her body was wasted. There were about 129 scars over her body, and that led to the government ordering an inquiry. And out of that, some fundamental changes have been made to the childcare system in the United Kingdom. So over time, throughout our history, we have had a tolerance. It's how we define childhood and how we see this authoritarian style of parenting as being the right way that creates a whole heap of problems, and it takes severe situations that have been sensationalized in many cases to bring about fundamental changes to how children are supposed to be treated.
Let me bring in Mr. Edmondson and ask him there to pick up on that in terms of this idea of how we parent, Mr. Edmondson.
First thing, when I see the video, it wasn't acceptable, trust me. I was watching the video with some of my male friends, and we were trying to pinpoint what could I really drive the mother to behave in such manner. When we look at things over here, because the video is going out, but other videos was going. So. Yeah,
let's not go too much into some of that, because of course, as been mentioned, the mother is before the court or so on, and I know there were other stuff floating around. But when Mrs. Robinson Hall says, for instance, it has to do with how we see parenting.
As she said, the authoritarian style, people just jump to that first. People feel like, say, when a child is something, is them right for wrong lick, which is not.
You say when you look at it, what you are seeing wasn't acceptable. It never surprised you, though. It surprised you?
Yeah, it surprised me. Oh, she not get a chop. Oh, the blood not run. I tell you honestly. Because some people are such skillful. That is not skill. She was lucky little girl and get a chop. The curious skillful, she was very ignorant. Yeah, you can hear it in the background. I'm tired of you, I'm tired of you, I'm tired of you, I'm tired of you.
Frustration.
So it was frustrations, you know?
Before we go to break, Mr. Williams, let me bring you in, sir. Your thoughts as the Child Development Agency. You're the agency that's called into these types of situations. So is that kind of situation something rare in Jamaica? Because a lot of people are saying, boy, they were so shocked and they were so surprised. I suspect you weren't.
I wasn't. And they are not as rare as we want to believe. It's just that they don't normally come to public attention in this way, because where we work in the courts every day, where children come for care and protection, we see all kinds of atrocities. So I was not shocked, but I was disappointed that we continue to operate in this mode, because sometimes we have been doing the talking, we have legislation, we have the CDA, we have the advocates, we have the registry, and we have been making a lot of noise. We have been going into the interlands, we have been going into the towns, we have been doing town hall meetings, we have gone into St. Thomas, we have gone to Dalvey, and we spent a day there walking around. We call those walk through. We have gone to Yalos. We have gone to Bamboo River, because we know that these parents need help. But when you see this kind of beating and this kind of abuse, then I was a little bit disappointed that we are still there, because I would want us to move a little nearer to more conventional methodologies of discipline.
Hold that thought for me. I'm going to go to break and we'll pick up on that. When we come back after the break, we're going to be hearing some members of the public speak about beatings, how they beat their children, what they endured as children, and their thoughts on what is happening. Remember, you can tweet us, #TBJ, all angles soon come.